She won that great big crown for the National Royal Miss pageant. She was so proud of herself and she wore that crown. She took it to school with her one time to share on show and tell day. She was just very proud of it and thought it was so pretty. And, you know, it was just kind of a more organized way of playing dress up, I guess.
It's been nearly 26 years since JonBenet Ramsey was killed in her home in Boulder, and police appear no closer to solving the case now than they were back in 1996. But now, JonBenet's father, John, tells Governor Jared Polis time for answers is running out, and John wants justice.
Okay, got a couple of videos that are just like miscellaneous short clips of different things like Lin Wood, John Ramsey kind of deal. And so, you know, I think the first clip is going to be a little bit of Lin Wood on Larry King, and then I think the second one is going to be like an update. Well, no, the second one is going to be 2016 Dr. Phil, just a little bit about that, and then last one is going to be like a 2020 something update or whatever. I can't remember. So just kind of, you know, just getting kicked around tires. This video is from Political Agendas. We've talked about him before. Smaller channel, about 5K, but name of the channel is Political Agendas. It, you know, kind of has some Ramsey stuff in there too. So here we go.
When she won that great big crown for the National Royal Miss pageant, she was so proud of herself and she wore that crown. She took it to school with her one time to share on show and tell day. She was just very proud of it and thought it was so pretty. And, you know, it was just kind of a more organized way of playing dress up, I guess. You know, all little girls like to pretend like they're princesses, and that's kind of what she was doing. She was my little princess.
We're back with Lin Wood. Although the governor of Colorado, Bill Owens, has never publicly outrightly called the Ramseys suspects, he seemed to suggest that they should be considered suspects at a press conference held after a grand jury was released. Watch.
I think that based on my understanding of the case, there's a reasonable belief that there was more than one person involved. If I could speak to John and Patsy Ramsey, I'd tell them to quit hiding behind their attorneys, quit hiding behind their PR firm, come back to Colorado, work with us to find the killers in this case, no matter where that trail may lead.
What was the Ramseys' thoughts on?
Let me tell you, that was in September or October of 1999, after a grand jury, 13 months of deliberations and review of the evidence, did not render an indictment against anyone, not John or Patsy Ramsey.
Yeah, so right there.
Or Patsy Ramsey. Indictment against anyone, render an indictment against anyone, not John. Deliberations and review of the evidence did not render an indictment against anyone, not.
So that was a lie. You know, if you don't know what you're talking about, then just don't say it. And you, but you see how DA Hunter coming out and hiding, using like very secretive language. You see what I'm saying? Like shrouding what he said in secrecy. You see what it did? It led Lin Wood. I don't even know if it led, because, you know, we talked about Lin Wood. Lin Wood does his own thing. Lin Wood will say one thing and like use legalese language to like kind of lead you astray and make you feel like, you know what I mean? And so I don't really know how much of this is true. You know what I mean? Like DA Hunter comes out and says, we're not moving forward with any charges. I don't know if Lin Wood took that to mean there was no indictments. Because if that's the case, Lin Wood doesn't understand Colorado law, is really what it is. Doesn't understand Colorado law. I mean, he doesn't have to, man. I don't think he was licensed in the state of Colorado. I think he was just a defamation attorney, one of the best where John wasn't. So I think John, you know, John and Patsy were in Atlanta when they hired him. So of course he wouldn't know anything about Colorado. And maybe things going on in Colorado and the grand jury law or the grand jury statute in Colorado that says that if you're, or at the time, the one that Alex Hunter was operating under, if you if you indict, then you don't have to give a written report of what happened. But if you don't indict, then you have to, in the interest of transparency, you have to give a written report. Is essentially what it is. But Lin Wood coming out and saying there was no indictment, that's a lie. And that's concerning. But also, there was a lot of pressure on Governor Romer, I think it was, who was the governor before Owens. And so they were trying to basically ring him and say, please do something about this case. We remember Judith Phillips, we remember Steve Thomas, and we remember Fleet and Priscilla White, who all wrote letters to Romer prior to Owens coming in, wrote letters to Romer saying, let's get this thing going. Stop allowing the Ramseys to hide behind their lawyers and their PR firms. And then Owens comes right back after them and kind of says the same thing. So that's all they wanted. When they wrote letters to the governor, that's all they wanted. Let's get this thing up and going. All this other stuff is bullcrap. Okay, so let's jump to the next short clip. Okay, this next video, JonBenet Ramsey's father writes to police about DNA. I don't know if they meant police or Polis is a DNA company. When I looked it up, I didn't see anything, but I really didn't look super hard. So here's the next video.
Brand new developments in the JonBenet Ramsey case.
So her father has now sent a letter to the governor with a plea to let a private company test DNA evidence. Fox 31's Matt Morrow here with those latest details. Matt.
Katie, it's been nearly 26 years since JonBenet Ramsey was killed in her home in Boulder, and police appear no closer to solving the case now than they were back in 1996. But now, JonBenet's father, John, tells Governor Jared Polis time for answers is running out, and John wants justice. At the heart of John Ramsey's letter is the ongoing DNA testing debate. There is a very limited amount of DNA evidence in the case, and investigators have been reluctant to let a private lab test it. But John Ramsey and many experts say the labs have technology and resources that the state does not that can likely analyze and sequence the DNA. The goal, of course, would be to match all of that with government and private DNA databases and find the killer. On top of that, John Ramsey is appealing to the governor on a personal level. Take a look at this. John Ramsey writes in part to Governor Polis, solving the murder of my daughter will not fill the void in my heart, but will identify and remove a demented and dangerous person from our midst, and in doing so, potentially protect the lives of other children. There is no higher responsibility of a governor than that, and as an elected leader, but more importantly, as a father, I respectfully ask you to do the right thing. Today, the governor's office confirms with us that it received John Ramsey's letter. The governor did not say if he'll release the DNA, but says investigators are talking with the private labs and, quote, the Boulder Police Department will be consulting with the Colorado Cold Case Review Team in 2023. The Cold Case Review Team is comprised of professional, investigative, analytical, and forensic experts from all across the state. So basically, there is a chance that this could happen. JonBenet Ramsey, just 6 years old, when her body was found in a home's basement in Boulder, she was strangled and beaten. This was shortly after her mother found a ransom note demanding $118,000 to get JonBenet back. Of course, a lot of people want an end to this. They want to see who did it. Jeremy, as soon as we know more, we'll certainly pass it on.
Yeah.
With us that it received John Ramsey's letter. The governor did remove a demented and dangerous person from our midst, and in doing so, potentially
Solving the murder of my daughter will not fill the void in my heart, but it will identify and remove a demented and dangerous person from our midst, and in doing so, potentially protect the lives of other children. Now, we've talked about before that this person, I guess, this individual essentially has to be two people. If we're going with the intruder theory, one to lure her down. They both could lure her down and just kind of, one as they're walking down the stairs, one carries her legs and the other, kind of carries her upper body and holds her mouth and, stops her from talking and stuff like that. And maybe if she gets too out of line, you have the stun gun and stuff like that. They take her downstairs and, they, set her down and they make a bowl of pineapples or a fruit cocktail for her or something of that nature. And then they wait and say, we got a little time, nothing's supposed to go down until maybe 30, 40 minutes. So just take your time, let us know what you need, stuff like that. And so, also too, here is a glass of tea that belonged to your brother. And so there goes that. And then we'll when you're done, when you're ready to finish being kidnapped, we'll walk downstairs and kind of go from that. One of the things that I have a problem with in that theory, though, is that the glass of tea that's sitting there beside the pineapple, because it seems to indicate that only Burke was having a snack, whether it was earlier in the day, well before they left, even if we go with the theory that maybe it's earlier in the day of Christmas, people just forgot about it. They got in a rush and went to Priscilla White's house, and we got in a rush and we couldn't pick up or clean everything up. So we just got up and left and vowed to get it when he came back. And so Burke just left the stuff there, and we went to sleep. And magically, when we got back, JonBenet, the pineapple or whatever food that was in JonBenet's stomach stayed in there. You know what I mean? So that long, from 4:30 till some fruit stayed in her stomach that long. So that's quite news to me. But anyways, these individuals sort of brought it downstairs. I'm not sure what the motivation of the crime was at that point. Crime of opportunity, and what kind of crime of opportunity that is, I don't know. Because as we know, they just took her and assaulted her, as they say, it's a theory, and got up and left. But the other part of that could be that one individual was watching while the other was in action. And then something happened and they both decided to up and sneak out of the window. So I don't understand. And then as you sneak through the window, it becomes a problem if JonBenet is still conscious, because how are you going to get JonBenet to stand still? Is the one thing. How are you going to get her to stand still as you move up the little fence thing and whatnot, and then get her to take it easy? That's little, and basically just essentially continue to wait to be kidnapped. No, you need somebody else there holding her so she doesn't get outside and get excited and just start running around as a kid, So I guess my thing is that I'm still kind of lost, or I'm still kind of hesitant to believe him when he goes on and says it's a single individual, because there's confusing language around who this individual is coming from John. Is it an individual or is it individuals? Because you guys in interviews keep on talking about, oh, this sick and demented individual. This individual is terrible. This individual is no good to society. And essentially trying to put it off on the public, as they always have. I don't need no help for me. We need help for you guys. You know what I mean? And it's funny because this individual, well, I guess you would have two individuals that have a vendetta against John. But these individuals that have a vendetta against John only had a vendetta against John to the point that it involved JonBenet, even though it had nothing to do with JonBenet, according to John. So now we have to say that there's two individuals who are mad at John, or one. Either way, this individual that John is no longer worried about for himself, but is now worried about for other people, this individual was apparently never interested in Burke. That's what's weird to me. This individual didn't even think about being interested in Burke, didn't even consider it. And Burke was left out a few times to where John was like, yo, the cops rolled up on my son without consent. If the cops can roll up on your son without consent, then maybe the intruders can roll up on your son and just take him. Oh, you're not going to listen? You're going to call the cops anyway? Boom, we got your son. What is it about JonBenet that they were so mad at you for, John, that they went straight, they skipped a 9-year-old? And people try to make the case that Burke was a non-threat. He was a non-factor. Burke couldn't have done this. Then why skip over somebody that's not a threat? Why are they skipping over someone who's not a threat? Just take the boy. Why not take them both? If you're mad at John, guess what? When Captain Hook, when he was mad at Peter Pan, guess what? He took both kids. Took them both to Neverland. Peter, I have a problem with you for taking my hand and feeding it to the alligator. Now, for that reason, you and both your kids are coming with me. That's what Captain Hook said. And he did it. That clearly makes sense. Guess what? It's an older male and a younger female. Perfect. Guess what? Peter on Captain Hook. Hook is the one I'm talking about. He was a businessman, self-absorbed in his work, neglecting his wife, want to have the, big lifestyle, right? And then somebody came in by night. You know what? I think we may have figured it out. I think I know who snuck in that night. Maybe it was Captain Hook. Captain Hook has done this before. Think about it. Captain Hook has done this before, and he did it just like this. He snuck in the house. He has the magic to sneak in windows. He snuck in the house, took the kids, carried them out to an imaginary world, and except on this one, like, he botched it, I guess is what I'm saying. On this one, he botched it. But we need to be looking at Captain Hook, because no prints were left by an intruder, and this intruder would be an unidentified male, hard to track down, because technically Captain Hook doesn't even exist. Think about that. Think about that as I get ready for this next video. So where are we with the Captain Hook thing? This is an interview with John on Dr. Phil. But where are we with this whole Captain Hook thing? Where are we? It's a good play. Too much? Am I doing too much? Let me know. Hey, Kato, that's not funny. That's not funny. Don't do that. Very distasteful. Don't do that. I get it.
Who suggested for you to search the house?
Linda Arndt.
She said, take Fleet White with you and search the house, see if he notes anything out of the ordinary.
He should not have been allowed to search that house by himself. He could have tampered with evidence without even knowing that it was evidence. That's a critical mistake.
So where did you begin?
Went down to the basement.
Why start there?
It's the most logical entry point. Went into we called it the train room. The kids had a train set up in this. There was a window open. There was a suitcase sitting under the window, which shouldn't have been there. And I noted that, mentioned it to Fleet. I said, that shouldn't be there.
You knew there was a broken...
Captain Hook. A suitcase under the window. The kids had suitcases visiting wasn't family, but visiting, well, family, yeah. In, what was it, England? Visiting family, don't quote me, could be wrong, but visiting family in Captain Hook. So they had suitcases available. Captain Hook can't. But in all seriousness, I think somebody said that Fleet said that he put that suitcase there. I haven't done too much to double check or fact check that. But somebody said that Fleet said he put that suitcase there to kind of climb up and get a better view. I don't know. But I guess the problem with that would be that if Fleet would have put that suitcase there to get a better look or better view, and this is why I say, man, if that is the case, sometimes you walk into a trap without even knowing that you're walking into a trap. I was reading one of the forensic reports, I believe, and it was saying, and I think it was by Detective Trujillo, and it was saying something to the effect that I feel like John, Fleet, and I can't remember his first name, but it was Fernie. They said he went down there. So it's like 3 people went down there. But they explained the fact that John and Fleet were standing in front of the window. Then all of a sudden, John just darted away and went and opened the door and found JonBenet. And Fleet wasn't like there. Fleet was trailing behind. Then after the door was opened and boom, boom, then that's when Fleet showed up. If I'm remembering correctly. So this is kind of the document that I'm pulling off of that I'm thinking about. So Mary T. Lacey, District Attorney, November 7th of 2007, Shannon Evanstad, the Bow Technology Group, and this is who they used to get the DNA analysis and result and stuff like that. Purpose of this letter, so sending this out to the district attorney, I guess. The purpose of this letter is to address the evidentiary items submitted to Bow Technology Group for DNA analysis regarding the investigation into the first-degree murder of JonBenet Ramsey. Some case overview. The Ramseys arrived at their home about 10 p.m. Christmas night of 96. Mr. Ramsey parked the family car in the garage and carried JonBenet. She was asleep, from the car to her second-level bedroom. JonBenet was placed in her bed between 10 and 10:15 p.m., according to John and Patsy Ramsey. Now, John is going around in his books and other places saying 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:30, like a whole hour before this, before the 9:15 right here. He's moved the timeline up a whole hour. And so here in the official document, even with Mary Lacey, it's saying 10 p.m. The police report said 10 p.m. So anyways, kind of scrolling down, you got more information here. Talking about between 5 and 5:55, everybody began to show up. Mr. Ramsey and Fleet were directed by the detective about 1 p.m. Researched the home for JonBenet. John Ramsey ultimately discovered his daughter's body in a seldom used basement level storage room. The door to the storage room was closed and secured with a wooden block. attached to the exterior door frame facing the inside of the basement with a single nail, thus allowing the block to be twisted and securing the door in place from the outside. John Ramsey discovered JonBenet lying on the floor of the storage room. She was attired in the same pajamas she wore from the previous night. JonBenet was found lying atop a white colored blanket that had previously been in her bedroom. I thought it was from the washer or the dryer or something like that. She was in a supine position, with her hands over her head. John Ramsey found his daughter with a garrote tied around her neck, and ligature around her wrists. No ligature was found on her ankles or legs. A piece of black duct tape was affixed to the mouth of JonBenet. Mr. Ramsey left the garrote in place. The garrote caused a deep furrow in the neck of the victim, in the area of the victim. The furrow was in a horizontal plane. He removed the ligature from JonBenet's left wrist. The ligature remained attached to JonBenet's right wrist. Mr. Ramsey carried his daughter upstairs and placed her on a rug adjacent to the front door. Detective with the Boulder Police Department picked up the body, carried it to the living room. The victim bore a single rust-colored irregular mark. Rope was found in the guest bedroom, so on and so forth. Moving forward, and this is kind of going to the information that Mary Lacey used to exonerate the Ramseys. And so you have some information about the garrote and stuff like that, and how it was tied and all such as that. Pretty interesting stuff. This is on the internet, so pretty interesting stuff at any rate. So I wanted to get to ligatures on the wrist. I'm not sure if I want to touch that just yet. But I think we're here. The duct tape affixed to the mouth of JonBenet was black in color and torn at each end. The duct tape did not match the other black duct tape recovered from the Ramsey home. Black duct tape found on the wall of mounted paintings differed in thread count and a difference in the color of adhesive. John Ramsey removed the duct tape from JonBenet Ramsey's mouth. He placed the duct tape on the white colored blanket that JonBenet was lying on. Fleet White Jr. entered into the basement level storage room after the victim was found. Fleet White Jr. picked up the piece of black colored duct tape from the white colored blanket, then placed the piece of duct tape back onto the blanket. Neither Fleet White Jr. nor John Ramsey wore gloves. The black piece of duct tape removed from the mouth of JonBenet Ramsey tested positive for human blood. The blood was analyzed by the CBI. DNA from the blood matched the victim's DNA profile. And this is going to be signed, sincerely, Andy Orita, investigator. So this is one of the reports we'll probably talk about at a later time from Bode Technologies. So getting back to the report. So in trying to also do some research on Fleet and his involvement in terms of him moving the suitcase, because John talked around saying, hey, I moved the suitcase. I moved the suitcase here and there. There was some glass, he had an interview in 97 and 98 where he talked about, hey, I moved the suitcase. We moved it around. We got down to look for some glass. We didn't see any, and we actually didn't see any glass. And then that was in the 97 interview, and then the 98 interview, he was like, well, we did see some glass, but very little. And I think we put it up on the ledge and stuff like that and whatnot. And getting back to my point about John possibly being caught in something or being set up in something. This article I pulled down, Smith Theory, a Stale Story, in the Denver Post, May 7th of 2001. It's very interesting because it, kind of goes down the line And then it says, take for instance, his time-worn insistence that an intruder entered the Ramsey home through a basement window, then placed a hard-sided suitcase beneath the window to make his escape. Good theory, but bad evidence. Smith's theory argues that the suitcase was strategically placed beneath the window so that the intruder could use it as a step to the head-high window sill. The problem is that Fleet White, who was helping JonBenét's father search the basement after the murder, has said from the first day of the investigation that he moved that suitcase there while he and John Ramsey were doing their amateur police work so the real cops could enjoy their holiday cheer. So you can easily see Smith's evidence is somewhat suspect itself, but if it fits his theory, it works for him. If not, he ignores it. So that's I say that John may have been set up and may not have even known that he was set up. Why do I say that? Because if Fleet is like, hey, and Fleet wasn't even trying to set anybody up. Fleet was like, hey, yo, I'm just gonna put this right here. I'm moving some things around. It looked like there was an intruder. But when John came in and looked at the window and it was like, hey, boom, Fleet is essentially saying, I've seen this window before and I'm not sure if it has looked like that before, but whatever. Hey, John, do you seen this window? What do you think? John said, yeah, I broke that last summer, 7-8 months ago, whatever the story is on that. 8 months ago or last summer. What do you consider last summer? Do you consider last summer as in this past summer or the summer before that kind of deal? So I don't know. But anyways, and he comes back to say that Fleet actually put that there. And so if John is saying, oh yeah, I tampered with it, I moved it, and Fleet is like, actually, no, I did. Well, you might have been set up to where Fleet started actually back, having to kind of look back and say, okay, well, let me think about this for a second. If I am the one moving this suitcase and then John is jumping in interviews taking credit for it, but then John runs around the corner to get away from me. He darts into the basement to get away from me to go check on the wine cellar, and I'm still around the corner. And then by the time I get around the corner, he goes and looks in the same place that I've looked before, but he says he's found something that I haven't seen before. And then comes back and says, oh my goodness, look what I found. And that doesn't seem credible at all. That's the problem. John's statements have to line up, and they're not lining up. And it's becoming glaringly bad. He said in the interview that the window was open 1/8 of an inch. Is that 1/8 of an inch? Let me know for real. Because I can't eyeball 1/8 of an inch. That's not me. That's not my skill set. That's not my calling. That's not my talent. I can't eyeball 1/8 of an inch. But I don't think in terms of this, we should really, in terms of how wide this is open, we should really be dealing in discussing 1/8 of an inch, because this seems like we should be thinking more along the lines of feet. How far was this open? Oh, a foot or two. That's what we might say about this. Oh, it was open it was about a foot wide, man. Something like that. John said 1/8 of an inch. Who opened the rest of it? Because 1/8 of an inch is small. It's like it's almost closed. Like somebody came in and, like we said before on another video, they try to shut it behind him and just to be, nice criminal. Close behind me, just, and then leave. But this is wide open. And then John goes on to take credit for stuff that he did not do. Oh, I moved this suitcase here and there. And Fleet is like, no, you didn't. Oh, I looked in the wine cellar and I saw JonBenet. right off the bat. And Fleet White is like, right off the bat? I just looked over there. I did what Officer French did not do, and I actually opened this, and I didn't see nothing. That's weird.
Suitcase sitting under the window, which shouldn't have been there. And I noted that and mentioned it to Fleet. I said, that shouldn't be there.
You knew there was a broken window downstairs, right?
Well, I had broken that glass and then opened the window to get in previous summer because I'd left my key and Patsy was gone. I thought we had it fixed, but we never went in the basement, so I didn't know that. So I wasn't surprised that the glass was broken, but I was surprised that the window was open.
So you come to this door and it's closed. And what's in that door?
Well, we called it the wine cellar, but there's never any wine in it. It was a junk room. I was just going through methodically every square inch of that basement, and I opened the door, and there's...
No, he didn't. The way he went through that basement was not methodical. He made a beeline from the window to the wine cellar. He went out of his way to go to the wine cellar. He went out of his way, and we've already talked about that. But he went out of his way to go to that wine cellar. That's
JonBenet.
Take me through the moment that your eyes fell on JonBenet's face as she... Take me through the moment that your eyes fell on John. Take me through the moment that your eyes fell on JonBenet's face as she was...
It's like his eyes dipped down for a second. It's like his countenance dropped for a second. It felt like his countenance dropped for a second. Like, you know, when somebody's dozing off and they go like that, that's kind of what it felt like in slow motion. You'll see it's like a twinkle, like a sparkle, like a downward sparkle in his eye. It's very quick.
Take me through the moment that your eyes fell on JonBenet's eyes.
When he blinks, it's like his eyes go down like that.
The moment that your eyes...
The hesitation on his eyebrow or his eyelid is what it was. It was like a...
fell on JonBenet's face as she was lying there on the floor. Did you know she was dead?
No, not at that point. I mean, I had this rush of, thank God I found her. And it was just this overwhelming sense of joy that I'd found my child. And her hands were tied.
No. I feel like you said you knew she was dead already. I feel like you said you knew, like right off the bat you knew. And does that look tight to you? No.
Over her head, she had tape on her mouth. I immediately took the tape off. Her eyes were closed.
Could you, at that point, perceive her injuries at the time? Could you see her neck and her head?
No, I didn't. There was a red spot on her throat. I didn't see the garrote because it was too deeply embedded in her skin. And I just was hoping she'd wake up and begin to realize that she wasn't going to, and just started to scream. I picked her up, carried her upstairs. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was just horrified. I couldn't speak. I was just screaming, and I took her upstairs and laid her down. I guess I was taking her to help in my mind. I didn't perhaps want to accept that she was dead. Linda Arndt knelt down beside her as I was and felt for her pulse and looked me in the eye and said, she's dead. And that's when I was just stunned. She looked very peaceful.
Well, that's that. Like I said, just a few little videos. just kind of collecting more information about John, what he says. And I guess at this point for me, it's starting to become glaringly clear. I'm starting to gather enough data to understand, I don't know if that's, when he says something, you'll be like, I don't know if that's true. I got to double check that because he said this over here and then he'll say this over here. And at some point in time, you have to start looking and say, these differences mean something. Like you can't keep, if you have nothing to do with this, why are there so many differences in your story? Like these are glaring differences. It's like, you can't just say my story changes over time because I forget things. Like you don't forget that much. You know what I mean? Like you don't forget that much. Like you're forgetting key details that people are asking you. Like when you look at the interview tapes, people are asking you about this stuff. Specifically, Lou Smith is asking you about this stuff. And I mean, Lou is like, where'd you get, where's this? Why'd you do that? Why'd you look at this? To try to get, as a detective, try in detective mode, trying to understand, okay, and what was there? And why would you do that? What did you see what did you see after that? Trying to ask those questions. But John is doing, in that interview, I think in 98, I think it was, he's doing a lot of, I don't know. I think was the light on? I don't think the light was on. It may have been though. I don't remember touching it. But maybe the light was on, but no, it wasn't. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's a bunch of talking points. And I think once you get to the bottom, because John has so many talking points that you don't know where you are in his universe of talking points. But I feel like once you learn about what he's going to say, you listen to him so many times and you learn about what he's going to say in the direction, then you start to understand, okay, I'm at the bottom of this well. I'm at the bottom of these talking points. And now I can sort of assess, given all the information that I've gotten, the validity of what he's saying and those talking points, given the information that's out there. And from what I can tell, man, it seems like John is just getting on stage and just talking and almost making stuff up, stuff that is quite frankly not true. When we're looking at the forensic report, John had, talked about previously, it was so tight, the cords are so tight, and the forensic report was like, it's loose. He was successful in untying both cords on her hands. He was successful in doing that. So that's not a problem. But John was like, it was too tight. I can't do it. Why would you lie about that? If you got it untied, then you got it untied. There's nothing wrong with that, other than the fact that you contaminated the crime scene even more. But it's untied. Why would you act like it's still tied to why would you untie it, get up and walk away and then act like to this day it's still tied there? You got to come on. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. That's the video. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your love. I appreciate your well wishes. Being under the weather. But till next time, you know what to do. Take care of yourself.